What's up everybody, this is Ketchup here, and for today's video I thought I'd do a cameo video for all things Rain. Now, I won't be making one of these for everyone at the moment, it's just that Rain is my current most played character, and with the different kind of cameos that you can play to get different results, I figured I'd go over them as one at a time as possible. I'm not going to include everybody, but I'm going to look at the cameos that we're seeing get use and explain why. First of all, we're going to look at Cyrax. Now, Cyrax is definitely the best cameo in the game right now, in my opinion, and he does give Rain some wonderful extra tools. It's what we're seeing Sonic Fox currently play as the main lineup, I suppose, and no doubt we'll be seeing that at East Coast Throwdown next week. But let's talk about why Cyrax works so well. It really does come down to one move. This. Alternatively, this. These two different forms of helicopter work so well for Rain for so many different reasons. The first one being the obvious. Doing anything on block to call in the helicopter, plus frames, chip, meter build, all the stuff that we're used to seeing. But with Rain in particular, it can give you different benefits. The horizontal version allows for various combos. Meterless conversions that you can just kind of go for and land. If your forward two were to hit somebody and you essentially do the horizontal chopper and then you dash cancel the straight projectile. That gives you enough time to go in and get even more combo damage. Alternatively, on block, you can do a similar idea because the overhead becomes a threat if there's not as much pushback. Alternatively, you can do the same thing into the low, which if there's not enough pushback on that, you can get yourself a launcher thanks to the back 2 into EX launch. Both of those are the simple and the basic. You want to be a little bit closer and a bit better with your dash cancel to make sure they don't get pushed too far back. But the idea of it as a base works. Now, mid-screen, a lot of it does come down to that. Doing various buttons into this, into walk forward, into a launch, into some kind of situation. You can go in for the portals if you wish. You can teleport into those as well. And that's all kind of layer 1. The big feature here and a really big benefit of Rain, especially from a set play point of view, comes from having the opponent in the corner. Now, this is where things get rather ridiculous because you can set up the harder blockables. Now, the timing on this kind of combo is a little bit tricky at first. You want to catch it so the straight-up helicopter hits a little bit lower to the ground. This will prevent the opponent from flying behind you. But it's a great way of being able to go into it. This kind of combo works for the overhead as well. Alternatively, backdash into a regular one. You can grab the opponent into it. Go in for a similar situation. If you have the execution to constantly time it, as you can see there, I did the helicopter a little bit too early. But this is a great way of setting up Rain set play. When you land this charged projectile, you can simply put it on the floor and go for the first level of it, I suppose. That's what we're a lot more familiar with. But alternatively, the opponent tries to delay wake up. This will still become active if they delay, where knocking them into the portal or the whirlpool is still extremely viable. I think grabbing somebody into it is a really scary way of going about things because it armor breaks, it creates setup, it creates everything you could possibly want, while at the same time doing absolutely insane damage. Now, as an absolute first level of Rain with Cyrax, it's all about the combos, the pressure, but importantly for Rain, meterless combo routes, and at the same time, charging your projectile to go in for that hard to blockable. Now, I expect we'll be seeing this next week, however, only time will tell. Watch the space for East Coast Throwdown. The second cameo I'd like to show is my current favourite combination, mostly because I'm just ridiculously predictable, but it's going to be Sektor, who works well enough with Rain that you can at least have some fun. Various combos involving the up missile, not as tricky as you might think, but rewarding and high damage. In the corner, the missile can give you some really fun situations, things like knocking the opponent on the floor, timing an up missile as the opponent's about to stand up, calling in a late missile, a grab, and then getting yourself a combo from that. This is all stuff that Sektor cameo allows most characters, but for Rain can give him pretty much the exact same situation. Comboing into the up missile to just give you some extra combo damage is just quite fun to do, and because of the damage, it's not terrible either. This is all stuff that, you know, we see a lot of Rain players do anyway, but being able to just chuck that missile on top on block as well can just help a little bit of the meter build. If the opponent tries to press a button, they risk eating the missile as well. It's all just quite fun to enforce. One thing Sektor is going to give you is meterless launches. If you were to hit this, and you don't want to spend any other meter, except for Cameo, you can go into the teleport of various things. The most main string you're going to use is 2-1-1, and on that first hit of the 1-1, you will call in the teleport, but in most situations, sadly, the teleport won't actually combo. You can't get it from 1-1, forward 2-1. You do have to really stick at the 2-1-1 here, but off a jump in, I tend to use this string quite a lot because of your jump kick. The jump 3-2 on block will simply go into this, and on hit, you get the launch. So I don't want to quite call it an option select, but being able to get a jump in into this guaranteed, you can just go in for the 2-1-1 instead on block, and if you have a Sektor missile, you can just simply add that to the end of things. Now, one thing Sektor does give you is the ability to do the jump cancel tech that has recently been discovered. Sektor can give you some uses of this, but not loads. But it's just a nice example to really show that Rain can use this kind of stuff, and a lot of it stems from up missile. Being able to, let's go mid-screen just for a few examples here. Generally the same thing. When you're about to do EX launch, if you time your missile correctly, you can just loop your jump-ins twice, and it results in pretty decent damage. If the opponent is far away, being able to do things like, you know, projectiles into your lightning strike, into this, the up missile can kind of cover some of that, and in some instances, if you time the projectiles correctly and the stars align, you can combo them together. Up missile into this works. Sometimes you can actually combo into the grounded whirlpool if you get a really nice amount of timing. This isn't something that's always going to happen, but let's say that connects, you can actually go in for your whirlpool at the same time. This is not something you're going to use on reaction. It's just if you're throwing out the missile and you just so happen to throw a whirlpool and it combos, kind of just be ready for it to hit. And if it does hit, then you can turn it into a decent combo. Not the most meta of pairings, I will admit, but it's fun enough that I really enjoy it, and if you like Sektor Cameo and you like Rain, they're not terrible together, and that's better than nothing. A cameo that I've already covered with Rain on this channel, but it's been a little bit since I made that video, and there's always more stuff to dive into. Sub-Zero. This is the cameo I actually recommend if you are new to Rain and want to kind of just get to grips with this character, because all of the stuff that makes Rain interesting, Sub-Zero gives you rather effortlessly. It doesn't take a long time to learn how to do all of this stuff, but you get a nice wide idea over what Rain is supposed to do by taking this cameo. If you want to learn how to zone somebody out, you can simply apply the ice armor that makes you immune to projectiles for its duration, and that just kind of helps the zoning game. The zoning game of using close range whirlpools to maybe restrict some movement, perhaps bait forward movement, using your lightning strike, the projectile perhaps, of which you can always charge it and back off if the opponent's getting a bit too close. All of these are vulnerable to an opponent's projectile, being able to somewhat anti-zone you with their own single move that they're going to throw at you. Having the Sub-Zero cameo protects you from these things, and it can make some characters struggle. I do firmly believe that against a Liu Kang, for example, that is very projectile focused, the existence of this projectile immunity will make someone like Liu Kang actually struggle a bit. It's not an amazing matchup to play if you're on the receiving end. Outside of that, I think the main thing you're going to be using with Sub-Zero here with Rain is this move. I have talked about this move before, and first time talking about it, I mentioned how going in for your air launchers into your forward cameo allows you to dash in, charge your projectile, and set up the whirlpool mix-ups. Now, early on, I was doing basically just the charged shot into the overhead. As things have developed, there is more to it. Being able to use this freeze, forward dash, this, a regular far distance whirlpool that you grab the opponent into, that works especially well in the corner, and actually gives you somewhat of a mix-up that Cyrax gives you. And that's what I find really exciting. If you launch someone, and you manage to get the freeze, you back off, throw this. It's actually the exact same situation that we're seeing from Cyrax. It's just easier to set up with Sub-Zero. Now, one thing I will say about Sub-Zero, and I've had plenty of people ask me, is how do I time the freeze? It's actually not execution-based at all. If you launch the opponent and do 2-4-3, just like this, before you hit the ground, hold forward cameo. Just hold it. And if you hold it about now, It comes out on the first available frame. There is genuinely no execution required. Once you figure out that you just need to hold it at the right time, Sub-Zero comes out on the first available frame, and from there you can do whatever you want. I'm showing the setup, but you can get damage if you wish. You can freeze the opponent, dash in, charge your projectile. If you want to keep the same side, jump in 3-2 to keep them facing the way you were before. But if you have a side switch on command, this will also give you forward cameo, dash in, charge your projectile, super kick. It's also fantastic damage, and you've just swapped sides for basically no effort. Now, the combination of good projectile games to play with the ice armor and being able to easily combo into this off a launch or something on the ground if that's what you really want to do, although I don't recommend it, it makes Sub-Zero the perfect starting point, but also being viable at a higher level. If the opponent starts to deal with the charged projectile into the whirlpool, there are things you can do to conquer delayed wake-ups, such as I said, backing off and throwing the whirlpool at the right time, of course, especially in the corner. We are hitting a point where this is starting to evolve a little bit, and while it's certainly not a absolutely guaranteed horrible situation that's just going to win you the match, it just creates something the opponent has to fear. And if you are in the driver's seat, that's a great position to be in Mortal Kombat 1. This game is all about momentum. Now, the Scorpion cameo, although rather simple in its use, is still prominent and has a place if you want to play Rain. I've mentioned it in previous videos, as I've said with the Sub-Zero cameo, but just like that one, it's worth talking about again. Scorpion gives you combos off your Geyser. Whether it's going to be the standard version for finishing combos, or whether it's going to simply be the armor that you can now launch off. This on its own is really useful. It's as simple as just armor into the regular up breath. Time it a little bit closer together, and you can turn it into a combo, into setup, into whatever you want to do. And it's just useful to have as this extra option. Some characters will have armored moves that you are able to interrupt, or shall I say they have moves you can interrupt with armor, is more accurate. And just having the extra damage off this helps. Rain does suffer from having relatively weak armor, in my opinion. On his own, he doesn't get much for it. It's about 10% damage, it's unsafe, the opponent can jump over it, some normals will just bypass it completely. So just being able to get extra reward from armor is pretty important. Outside of that, combo damage. Ender combo and Geyser. You're getting about 420 damage there for a very basic confirm, and that alone is extra damage and more situations afterwards. It's not the easiest thing in the world to time, and when you're comboing from this, a lot of it does come down to the up direction, because it just means that they're guaranteed to be the right side of the screen. The other versions, they just don't really hit their mark. An exception being when the opponent's in the corner, the standard fire will hit them, and from your armor up close, again, standard fire just works a bit better because it removes the possibility of accidentally getting a far Geyser, which up close is the last thing you want. If you're trying to do the far version of that and armor at the same time, sometimes you can accidentally get the wrong version, and if they're point blank, it will miss, and you'll actually lose a bunch of life while losing meter at the same time, so that's not ideal. An extra benefit Scorpion gives you is an escape. So let's just do something that has a gap in it. If you want to armor this and punish it, you can, but let's say the opponent is pressuring you like a Johnny Cage or a Tanya. Just having something that you can escape with and go back to a distance that you'd rather be at is pretty useful. This doesn't work against every single character, but when you're blocking offense, being able to escape and then go back to a range that you are far more comfortable gives the Scorpion Spear assist a lot more use than you might expect. Now, Scorpion does give you other elements, other things to help you out, one of which being just a meterless combo. Let's say you've hit the standard down back one that's not armored, or armored, EX. If you go for the regular version here and do up fire, this becomes a meterless combo. Now, there's not a huge amount of cameos that can give Rain a meterless extension from this, so just having that benefit really helps you. Again, the timing is something you kind of just have to get used to. As you know, the more you play, the more you learn, you'll become a lot more acquainted with this, but just being able to get a meterless launch can be really useful, because the more meter you're saving, especially with Scorpion Cameo, the more meter you can actually spend on armored reversals turning into a combo, or combo breakers. And some characters hit incredibly hard that having the extra access to breaker means quite a lot for you. There's all kinds of other things you can do, but again, to show you an introduction to what the cameos can do, Scorpion lets you combo off armor, he gives you good combo enders into decent damage, escape potential, and an element of a mix-up. Forward 2-1 is a low, forward 2 into the overhead is technically a mix-up, but I think at a higher level it's not as real, because it is reactable. An opponent will block low first, and they will simply react to Scorpion coming in. It's at a higher level something that's a bit easier to see. Online it's harder to react to because of just the little bit of delay that exists. But having it in your back pocket as an extra option that you haven't shown the opponent yet, that's something that can catch someone off guard. So overall, Scorpion Cameo, I think it's really good when you pair it with Rain. A cameo that we're seeing climb the ranks recently is Kung Lao. This cameo is not very flashy with some characters, but it's really effective, and I've been seeing some Rain players get great results using it. The low hat, as you might expect with Lao, does tend to be the best move. It helps out the zoning. If Rain wants to play this keep away game, a lot of it is slow, right? And the fast low hat is something that can somewhat address that. It's not going to win you an entire match, but just having this option at the touch of a button, combined with its incredibly fast cooldown, gives Rain that extra element full screen that he might not have with other cameos. It's not very flashy. That is the big thing. It's not going to give you all this wild combos, wild tech, but it gives you a meterless combo starter in the spin. It's going to give you situations where you might launch an opponent, charge the low overhead. Jump into low hat is something that's not 100% real with many characters, and I think they probably can jump or challenge it, but that's something that you can simply alter your time with if that's what they want to do. But even instances where an opponent has the low hat here, the low hat's in front of them, and now you've got an overhead. The existence of the launching overhead can, again, just create a weird situation. I know the game does have built-in, if it's really tight, hard-to-blockable protection. I think, like, right there, the protection probably would have protected Sub-Zero from blocking that. But it is this combination of low hat for zoning and keep away. If you're close and the opponent's blocking, you've now got things like this. Let's not forget 2-1-1. That's an overhead. And you now just have a low that you can throw out, and that's plus on block, on top of being, well, it's more than safe, it's plus. And on hit, they're still going to get hit by it. Let's say we do 2-1-1. Continue your offense, whether it's 1-1-2. Maybe we can get this string into low hat. Charge it. Whatever you want to do, really. The sky's the limit when it comes to Kung Lao's low hat. It gives you more than most cameo assists in the game, and I would certainly say this is one of the single best cameos that the game currently has right now. It is a combination of zoning, combo potential, thanks to the spin. Importantly, and I will say this, Kung Lao giving you a reversal is something that very few cameos can provide. Let's say we're going to do something with a low in it, right? We can interrupt and combo. Normally, if I'm trying to go for my reversal as Rain, we have to do the EX down back 3. And this move isn't very good. As I've said in this video already, that some cameos can at least give you a combo for this, without having to even spend meter, Lao gives you a launching spin into a combo. And just the existence of that alone can take a character who does have a generally, I would say, quite weak defensive game from an armor standpoint. Lao's spin letting you punish things while being invincible and spending none of your own meter. The only thing you're losing is cameo meter. That, again, is a very, very useful tool to have, especially as Rain. So, if you want to play Rain and thrive with range, have a little bit of extra block pressure up close, you want to have some of that cheap stuff thanks to the low hat, and then have launching potential and a reversal, Lao does all of that for you. And that's it for the current look at good cameos that are paired with Rain. I think at this point in the game, new tech and new combinations are being found almost daily. But for today's video, as someone who's played a ton of Rain since release, I thought this might help some of you that are looking to pick up the character and are looking for good pairings to just put together. We are about to enter tournament season. A bunch of events, both offline and online, are taking place with, as I said, East Coast Throwdown. The first official stop in the pro competition is next week in the United States. So definitely make sure you're watching that, and we could definitely see some Rain in that tournament. Take care of yourselves, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.